Les interviews magiques de Marcus Majard.
Hi everybody and welcome in this new magic interview. Yeah, it's been a while. And you know what they say? One interview a year makes the doctor without fear. Well, whatever. This time I have the great pleasure to show you the interview of Michael Amar. And by the fact I learned a lot with his videos, he is on my dream list, clearly. Yeah, you know, Michael Amar is for me one of the boss in magic. He is amazing with so much stuff in magic. It could be cards, coins, caps and balls, and so on and so on. Yeah, for me he's one of the greatest. He came in Brussels for a lecture in May 2019 and it was of course really amazing. Let's now watch the interview and I meet you after that. Well, thank you very much to accept the interview. I feel very honored because about 8 years ago you were on the late night show of David Letterman and now you're on the Marcus Majard show, so I feel very honored. Exactly. Thank you very much.
Working my way up.
So, I will read the question. It's new this time. So I think it's your second time in Belgium. What do you think about our country?
Well, there's a lot of great magicians that come from Belgium, you know, and I've developed a lot of good friends here. You know, Christian was here for the lecture tonight. It was a pleasure to see him again after so many years. But yeah, and I was here many years before with Klingsor. We did a convention a number of years ago. So yeah, it's always a pleasure to come back.
All right. Well, my first important question is about the fact it's your last lecture tour in your career. If it's not very personal, can you tell us why?
Well, not necessarily the last of my career, but the last time I'll probably come through this area on this swing. You know, there's still many countries in Europe. Germany has its own tour. Italy has its own tour. Spain has its own tour. You know, the Scandinavian countries. But I also only come back every 6 to 10 years. And so when you look down the road, you know, and plus the industry is changing a lot. You know, the magic clubs aren't like they used to be. In the U.S., there's not as many magic shops, you know, and that's where a lot of these lectures take place. And just things are changing. So I don't know that 6 or 10 years from now that this whole idea will even work. So I'm just being realistic and saying, okay, this will. I'm not saying hard and fast that I'm not ever going to tour again, but I'm probably not going to come through this region again. You know, by the time I do some of the others, it actually takes 3 or 4 years to tour everywhere. You know, if you do a tour every 2 or 3 months, something you do 3 or 4 tours a year. So it would take me 2 or 3 years to go to all the places one last time. And then after that, I think the industry is changing. And I love to do it, you know, but it's kind of a young man's game. You know, on this tour, I'm doing 19 cities in 21 days. You know, at one point it's 13 cities in 13 days. So it's really a hard work. I mean, it's the only way to do it as a business is to work every day. If you have too much time off, then it's just not profitable. But to do it in the right way, it's hard work.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. It's exhausting. It's something exhausting. Amongst all your qualities as a magician, you are known as one of the best lecturers in magic. Do you have an idea why? And well, I can imagine it's an hard question because it's always difficult to explain why we are good at something, but maybe can you answer it based on the different feedback that you receive from the audience, for example?
Well, I know that I like to do the lectures. I think a lecture should be as good as any show could possibly be, maybe even better, because you get the best of both worlds. You get to perform, but then you get to explain how much thought went into these things. And the explanations can be as interesting as the performances, you know, if you do it in the right way. And I just enjoy doing it. I've always liked talking about magic and sharing magic. And I love to see it when people say, oh, I do this routine of yours, I do this routine of yours. And so I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to think about it and put it together in a way that makes sense and explain it in a way that makes it clear to everybody. So if they say I'm good at it, it's just I want to be good at it. I want to do a good job, you know, because I enjoy the whole experience of lecturing.
All right, all right. You are interested in a lot of magic areas like cards, coins, cups and balls and so on. Do you have a favorite area, or do you need or like all of this together, and why?
Well, I think I like the idea that they can remember what they saw you do. You know, some of my first professional shows were in nursing homes, and every Wednesday night I would do a family night. And every Wednesday night I would hear a story. One of these old people would say, you know, when I was a little girl, a magician came to my school, and they would describe this trick that they saw 80 years ago. And I used to think, wow, wouldn't that be great to give somebody a story that they could talk about? And so I started thinking in terms of how can they remember it? What's a good way? Because then it becomes a matter of starting what the mind does, and how do you remember things, and how do things become memorable. And I just realized if I do 6 card tricks in a row, you're not going to be able to remember those card tricks. So maybe they can remember 2. Maybe, okay, then you'd want to do something different. Okay, so I like a really textured performance. You know, the bottle and the ropes and then the coins and then cards and you know, the cups and rings. And so I just like to do a lot of different things so that it doesn't all blur together in their minds. Some guys are really good. They can do a 30-minute card show just with 1 deck of cards. But I think it's hard for people to remember specific things when they see a lot of stuff with the same stuff. So my goal was to have a really textured performance when it all goes together.
All right, all right. You are one of the students of Dai Vernon. I don't want to focus about him because the interview is about you. Even if it will be difficult to interview Dai Vernon, yes, but that's another story. So my next question is more about what he gave you. If you had to name one and only one advice that he gave you, which one will it be?
Well, you know, yeah, there's no really one thing, but one thing, I mean, if I was forced to quickly pick one thing that does come to mind is he would say, you know, confusion isn't magic. And that's a good thing to remember, you know. As soon as somebody's confused, they lose the possibility of being astonished. You know, if they think they're watching a puzzle that's different than, you know, things have to be very clear and very simple to be understood, and again, that plays into making it memorable. You know, if they're confused about what happens, they're not going to remember, you know, what happened. And just as a core piece of advice, you know, it's like be natural. Okay, that's a kind of a blanket piece of advice, you know. But the same is true of making it simple and clear and easy to understand. You know, that's. You know, there was a lot of pieces of advice, but, you know, that's an uncommon piece of advice. Yeah. That you know, if they don't understand what's happening, it's not magic. They have to understand. You know, this is important.
All right, thank you. And speaking about students, I had the pleasure to meet one of your students, Costa Kimlet, years ago, and everybody can see how amazing he became. My question is about your way of teaching. What is your best advice to teach someone magic?
Oh, yeah, Kostya is just a wonderful performer, and he's really a passionate performer and a great businessman as well. One of the few that has that full package. But, you know, when I spent time with the professor, you know, it wasn't so much that there were lessons. Things come up in conversation, you know, and I ask about a certain effect and we talk about it. And, you know, I think it's good. When I was working with the professor, I always tried to make sure that he realized I was taking his advice. You know, so the next time I saw him, I would say, you know, that thing that you told me about, here's what I'm doing with it now. And I think that he liked to see that, oh, when I say these things, you actually listen to what I'm saying and you incorporate it into what you're doing. And that's always a good piece of, you know, as student to teacher kind of thing. But yeah, I hang out with some of these guys, and I'd like to think I give them the best advice that I can, you know. But I think of them more as friends than students, you know, and just try to give a friend the best advice I can about whatever they're working on.
All right. And I think it's a wonderful relation.
Yeah.
More friends than students.
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful relation. One question I ask in all of my magic interviews, what do you think about magic these days? Is it good or bad? What's your opinion about it? You gave a part of the answer in the beginning, but your general opinion about that?
Well, magic changes all the time, and what the public is interested in changes. You know, and during my life in magic, you know, trade shows went from being really important work back in the 90s to there was no trade shows. It went from no comedy clubs to now there's 5,000 comedy clubs and you have to have a comedy act, to now there's no comedy clubs. Private parties kind of came and went. All of these industries kind of come and go, so you really have to be flexible about what you're studying. And realize that styles are going to change. You know, I remember seeing Dan and Dave Buck when they were very young and not feeling like this could be its own genre, but yet they've developed a whole genre of extreme flourish stuff that really caused the card market to be what it is. You know, people used to not do flourishes because they didn't want you to think it's all skill. But then they would think it's a trick deck, so you always had to use bicycle cards, right? But now when they do these flourishes, it's clear that it's not a trick deck. So why not use a cool deck when you're doing that? And so that card market came out of, I would never have predicted that it would be as important to the magic community as it's become. And now stylistically, you know, Shin Lim won the America's Got Talent. And it's really playing to a camera, which is a style that I wouldn't have thought would really gain traction. But we all have these screens, and we're all used to watching these little things on these little screens. So, you know, that style has become successful, and whether or not it stays successful, I don't know. You know, if they don't need you to be there live, you know, they can just watch the video. Is it different? I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that style. I mean, he's really got a wonderful look, a wonderful style, and it all kind of comes together as a formula. But it may be that's the beginning of a whole new style of just performing for the camera. Mm-hmm. So you just have to be aware that times change, and the appropriate magic changes at the same time. You know, when street magic and David Blaine came along, you know, that really took close-up magic to another level of just authenticity. It's not on the stage. It's you know, interpersonal magic. So yeah, there are times when, you know, just pop culture embraces a different style, and it's just interesting to see how those styles are changing. You know, it's changing all the time.
We'll see in the future.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I have a question of a subscriber to my channel. It's from Nicholas the Magnificent. I'm not sure it's his real name. And he asks you, can you tell us one of your best experience that you had as a performer, and what was your motivation all along your career?
Wow, one of my best experiences. There's been so many wonderful experiences. It's hard to pick one, but what was my motivation all along?
All along your career.
Yeah, well, I loved giving people that feeling of astonishment. You know, when you see something that you don't understand, it's such a wonderful feeling. You know, Paul Harris had an interesting way of explaining it. He says, you know, when we're, you know, all children are astonished all the time. You know, the television is astonishing, the telephone is astonishing, you know, everything is amazing. But eventually they start figuring things out. They have like little boxes in their heads of explanations. Well, that's not a little people in a box, that's a television, and that's not, you know, a little person in this thing, it's a telephone, and they figure life out, right? And soon everything has an explanation. And that's good on one hand, but on the other hand, life is less amazing when you have everything figured out. But magic comes along, and suddenly you see something that you don't have a box in your head for. And it's like, what is this? And you're astonished again. And, you know, the last time you felt like that was when you were a child. And that's why they frequently think magic is for children, but it's not. It's for adults to be reminded that the world is a wonderful and astonishing place. And it exercises their ability to imagine other things. So what magic does is it's really a reminder that amazing things are possible, and you don't always have the answers for everything, and it's not just for children. It's really, I think, for adults more than anything else. So the ability to give somebody that feeling of astonishment it's a gift. You know, it's genuinely, you're giving somebody a gift. And you know, at Christmas sometimes I do shows, and they also have a Santa Claus who comes out and gives the kids gifts. And when we're back in the rooms getting ready, you never see the Santa Claus looking nervous. You know, he's always happy, and he's got, you know, because he knows, hey, I'm coming to give gifts. Why be nervous, right? But with magicians, they're nervous because they want it to work and they want to look good and everything. But really, you're like a Santa Claus. You're there to give gifts. This wonderful gift of astonishment. It's an intellectual delicacy that people don't experience very often. And so why be nervous when you're there to give somebody such a wonderful thing? You know, you're not there to take anything. You're there to give this wonderful experience. And that's really always been my motivation. Yeah.
All right, that was a wonderful message.
Oh, okay.
And to end, I always give the end word to the magician. So, do you have an advice, even for magician or non-magician, that you want to share with people that are watching?
Well, it's you know, I told a little story that I won't go into at the end of the lecture, but really it's you know, just perform magic in such a way that people like it more when you're done than they did before, you know, which means perform in a social and a gracious way, and don't do it to make fun of anybody or to take advantage of any situation, you know, but really, if you perform it in a certain way, everybody that sees your performance likes magic more, and it's like a snowball. It keeps getting bigger for everybody. So that's my own personal goal, to perform so that, you know, when I'm done, they're going to like this experience more than they thought they would, and they'll look forward to seeing another magician somewhere down the road. So that way, it's good for everybody.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for this interview. I feel very honored for that, and I have to say I began with you learning magic. I will say about 20 years ago with Caps and Balls. So I feel more than that honored to make this interview and to meet you for the first time.
I love to hear that.
Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
And my pleasure.
And enjoy the rest of your magic tour.
Thank you. Yeah, 3 down and 16 more to go.
Okay, enjoy.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back. I hope you liked the interview like I did like to spend a great time with him. Once again, I would like to give a huge thanks to Michael Amar for this great interview, but I want also to give a huge thanks to Alain Guérand, who planned this wonderful lecture and who made this interview possible. Well, that's it for this video. I see you in the next video. Until there, take care of you. Ciao!